Hey Dom,
Hi, Jenna.
how you doing?
Well, I'm very respectable right now,
Are you
very classy,
demure?
very
Yes,
demure. I'm wearing
very,
I'm wearing a crisp ironed pink shirt, very demure, very, very keeping it
very
very classy for you,
approachable. Yes, I
very
appreciate
approachable.
that.
Yes. Just want to let
Very
you know.
nice. I do appreciate that.
I I'm all about keeping it demure, Jenna.
Oh my God, of course. I mean, shouldn't we all be about keeping it demure? Very classy. No, nothing too crazy, nothing like the
Nothing too
crazy.
crazy.
No,
Nothing.
just very demure, which is saying
Well,
something in this particular economy.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Lot to
So
talk about.
let's start the show. Hi, I'm Jenna,
And I'm Dom, and we're both award-winning journalists.
who've recently been laid off.
Our industry is experiencing a seismic shift, and it's shed a lot of really good journalists.
So, where does that leave us? Well, we're definitely laid off,
And we're looking for new jobs, looking for what's left of the industry, and what to do next.
and we're looking at all of it. So, if you're a fellow laid off journalist, a working journalist, or someone who admires the craft, we're looking to build community.
Develop new skills, and try to figure out what just happened.
Welcome to Laid Off and Looking. Yeah, dude, it's oh my God. You
Anything
know what?
but demure?
Oh my God, we literally had a conversation. We were just like, you know what? I think we can just start talking about other stuff and not just the terrible headlines. And then they started back up again.
We tried. We
We really
tried.
did
We really
try.
wanted to try because it's not something you do. Yeah, it's like it feels like Groundhog Day. That's
It
what it
really
feels like.
does. It really does. Uh,
Um,
what do you so do you want to start with some headlines and I'll read some headlines because
yeah, yeah.
it ain't
I'll just
good. Warning, trigger warning. None of it is good.
I guess I'll start off with I guess something that's been kind of we've been waiting for because Paramount did announce earlier in the year that there were going to be more layoffs and they finally announced it. And this was one of the headlines. This is from Hollywood Reporter, and it's Paramount TV Studios is shutting down. There's going to be major restructuring within the company, and they're going to be letting go 15% of their staff. Um, and they're trying to eliminate a $500 million from their budget. The president of Paramount Television is leaving, will leave the company, and all current projects and development will be moved under CBS Studios. It's this, I mean, it's big. I mean, even though I know we've been expecting it, and honestly, there's going to be more. It's just that's big. And
No,
the
that is
impact it's going
big.
to have on creative media industry is, uh, I just still wonder where you go from here. How it rebuilds. It will, but it's going to be so different. But yeah, so that was a big headline. Do you want to?
Yeah, well, just one other thing to add to that is that I saw somebody post something about this on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
because that's where you go to find out who's out of work now. And yeah, some woman had posted something and she was talking about, to all the people who think that like, oh, but if you were, good at your job, you would have survived the layoffs, or, companies just have to quote unquote trim the fat. And she's like, this isn't trimming the fat anymore. These people that they're letting go are rock stars. I understand that phrase gets bantered around a lot, but still, these are incredibly gifted, talented, creative people who are being cut loose into a job market that doesn't seem to think, at least, doesn't seem to think it has any use for creative, talented people. Because I wonder how much like some people are still thinking, yeah, but can I just get AI to do that? Like way cheaper, like a $32 subscription, and I'll just type some stuff into AI and then that'll do it. And your, $100,000 salary we don't have to pay for.
Hmm. I think that's part of it. I think and I also think that there have been a lot of projects that maybe in the past were being greenlit that maybe under certain, like, I think there's so much content out there. I don't know about anybody
Oh,
else.
there
Like I felt,
totally is.
and I think that um, I think that we're at a stage right now where this is where we've been talking about this too, where it's like we're trying to figure out where do creatives fit in now in terms of if you're somebody who worked in TV production, if you worked on films and you're not seeing as many being made, how how does this shake out too? Because that's the other part of it. It's not just about AI, I think. I think it's about just like slowing down in production on everything. They're making less, they a lot of companies they don't want to risk a failure.
Yeah.
They'd rather just keep to you know, certain types of what they think will be and
Sequels.
exactly sequels or
Something number
IP that has a pre
9,000. We've made 900 of these films.
hit certain IP that is guaranteed to be a success.
Not reruns, but what is it? When they bring back something? Because I understand
Reboot,
there's
reboot,
reboot. Yes, reboots seem to be very big right now. We'll just take this super successful show and we'll get
yeah,
all the people who are on it and we'll bring them back and that'll be
yeah.
good enough.
Nostalgia always or well seems to always work. And my thing is that's great, but just making sure you're creating your new content too. You know what I mean? You're creating new IP that
Yeah.
people will want to revisit because I mean, I get it. A lot of us, there's a lot in the zeitgeist of like, we all have a lot of the similar types of, ideas sometimes, and they can all kind of, things from the past have an impact on what we create in the future. But it's always about, I don't know. I feel like there were certain chances that were being taken years ago because you were allowed to kind of fail. I mean,
No, that's what
I,
I've
you
heard
know,
from a lot of people, especially in like entertainment media. There was it was
oh,
about creating art, and art is about taking chances and stuff. And somewhere along the lines, um, there's been different theories, and I don't work in that field, so I can't really speak to it, but somewhere along the line, it just became about what's going to make me a buck right away.
I,
I want to
I
turn
think
around on my investment yesterday.
I think of something like this just came to me as we're talking about this, but I think back when I was younger and I first went to go see Pee Wee Herman,
Hmm.
uh, his film, Pee Wee's,
Big
what is it? Pee
adventure.
Wee's Big Adventure, and it was like I remember that was such an unusual. Like I was younger then, so I didn't remember him being out there. I know he had his act and he
Pee-wee's
might have had an audience.
Playhouse.
Well, that all came after.
Oh, it did?
Pee Wee's, yeah, yeah. Pee
Oh,
Wee's Big
okay.
Adventure came out. It came out first. If I'm gonna double check that, but that's how I remembered it. And
No,
then
it's
came,
completely plausible. I just remember Pee-wee's Playhouse, but being a
but
child of the 80s, we got to see so much like just creative and even into the 90s. Creative and like edgy and like, interesting art as entertainment.
some of it did not. Yeah, so Pee Wee's Big Adventure was 85, and his series, Pee Wee's Playhouse, 86.
Okay.
So I guess I say that just because I remember being a kid and I went with my brother and him being like, "That's so weird. Like this guy is weird. Why do you
That's
think this
what
is so
made it
funny?"
so interesting.
And I loved it when he went on and did what is it, the tequila song, right?
Oh
He
yeah,
doesn't have
dancing on the
to
bar.
have the bar.
And then that song became a hit again after like 1958 or something.
Yes, but I guess I say that because
Tequila.
I felt like we had, and don't mistake me, there are some people are taking some chances, but I just felt like back then you have a major studio putting something like that out there and taking a chance was, I feel a lot more commonplace than it is today, especially in like film and even series.
Yes, I work in
Yeah,
journalism
but
media, so I don't
but
know, but I've heard people who do work in Hollywood, for lack of a better description, say that point blank that the people who are studio heads now have little to no interest in creating art and are much more interested in what's going to garner big box office numbers. In fact, it was even in a movie from like the aughts, one of those like where you put a bunch of stars together in a movie and then it was like,
oh,
oh God, what
yes,
Kate Winslet. Okay. Kate Winslet was in LA for some reason. This is a Christmas movie. I'm forgetting the name of
a
it.
holiday.
Yes,
Not
there
the
you go.
holiday.
Yes,
Was
I
it?
think it was the holiday. I think maybe. Anyway, she makes friends with this little old guy who's like the neighbor
Mm-hmm.
of the woman whose house she's staying in, and he used to be a writer for Hollywood back in the day. And even he laments that like, now a picture's got to make like $1 bazillion to be considered a hit. Like you got to give art a chance. And a perfect example of like art and weird stuff is one of my favorite all-time inspirational movies, Jim Henson's The Labyrinth. Apparently, that movie
Oh,
bombed when it came out, but
it,
became a cult classic.
wow. I didn't realize that it bombed.
I'm pretty
I,
sure I don't know, bomb, maybe that might be a little bit
yeah,
harsh,
no, but that,
but it really did not do well at all. And I remember Siskel, because I went back and I looked up Siskel and Ebert's back when everybody was alive. But anyway, I went back and I looked up their review of the film and they were just like, this makes no sense. Nothing follows a, train or whatever. And the rules keep changing and everything that you do, like you're always on the wrong foot and you can't get a clear path on anything. Now, me watching that as somebody who's like a younger Gen Xer is like, yeah, dude, that's the life I'm living right now. Nothing makes sense. The rules keep changing and I can't get a foot ahead.
you know, you,
I'm still
you,
feeling very passionate about that film.
no, but no, but that, I look at also what you just said, like, yes, we work in journalism, but it all is connected because even in journalism, people do want, for the most part, like the major publications, the major broadcasters, the major companies behind the news are looking like as well. I think you want clicks, you want people to be like reading. So you sometimes are putting emphasis on stories that are out there and like what are some of the big stories and or sometimes repeating over and over again. If you look at cable news, it's always repeating what everybody else is talking about.
Well,
Why?
because we're
Because like
relying on advertising dollars.
and so I just think the ability to take a chance sometimes and risk failing, that's the big thing that is so important.
But
I,
man, the reward is
right?
so good. Like to this day, I still remember Liquid Television from MTV.
Hmm.
And that was nothing but letting artists do your thing. Just
The
keep
state,
it cleanish and you can do
I,
whatever.
I remember the state, and
Yes.
also
Kids in the Hall.
Kids in the Hall. I mean, these were, you know, cult had cult followings, like a lot of, I guess, generationally, maybe it was speaking to a certain generation, but I think
Oh,
anybody could really
completely.
jump on it. But they were, I don't know, you just, and you have it differently now because I know a lot of people who I think who would do that type of comedy or do that type of work are now on podcasts or they're on YouTube and they do these small little, you know,
Yeah.
pieces. But just because before you mentioned also about not willing to fail because everything has to make over $100 million. I remember Cord Jefferson at the Oscars, when he won, he said he won for best adapted screenplay for American fiction, and he also directed it, but he had mentioned that he wished Hollywood would produce more, like instead of spending $100 million on one film, he's like, how about $10 million on 10 films? Like, you know what I mean? Like instead, so basically let's lessen, like take chances on smaller movies, take chances on smaller creations, because this way you're actually giving a chance for more to be created.
And that makes sense, but again, from what I've
It's
heard
not.
from people
Yep.
working in the business, but there's no guarantee I'm going to make my money back.
Mm-hmm.
And I want my money back with interest.
Because everybody wants only the big star. You want the big hit, but you know, it
But I
comes at
think,
a
I mean,
cost.
to a degree, I personally,
Yes.
well, I was never into the superhero movies, so I'm probably not a good person to speak on this. But I think people are going to start to get sick of like the insane number of sequels and like just it's just how many times can you retell the same story? Actually, I don't know. Because if you ask, I mean, Tyler Perry's a billionaire, so apparently you can tell the same story over and over again, and it works out. So I stand corrected. What the hell do I know?
You want to go?
Anyway, should we
Yes.
move on to more?
Yes, I think so. I know. I'm like, we could talk about this for the entire show. I think we'll be like, oh no, but we forgot the rest of it.
I know, but
Yes.
we're actually here to talk about journalism. Okay, so this is one of the things I really appreciated. So, from one of the independent news outlets that I follow, Hellgate, which is out of New York City, Um, Under the subject line of fresh hell, and I love them for that so much, comes the headline: New York Public Radio announces another round of staff cuts as it says it faces another $10 million deficit. And yeah, if you've read my bio, I think I told my story early on in our podcast. I worked
Hmm.
there. There's people who I know there. I don't, first of all, I don't know where anybody stands with anything, in terms of who's taken a buyout, who hasn't. But what I do know is that my heart breaks for the station, that it's
Hmm.
going through this again, that it's, the people who I worked with, the ones who are still there, are going through this again. And it just, I know this has got to be terrible for staff morale. And I also would imagine that it's not healthy, I guess. And I thought of this because, so the other headline, these both hit really close to home
Yeah.
for me this week.
Yeah.
The other headline, again, I took from another independent news outlet, The Well News. But their headline was New York City's premier all news station is biting the dust. And basically, CBS AM, or News Radio 880, is gonna go goodbye August 26th. They're switching over to ESPN Radio. And so their all news format is going to be gone. Now, I didn't work at CBS 880, but I did work at their sister station 1010 Wins. And so there's a lot of there's some overlap. There's some people who, like worked at one, worked at the other, etc. And even though I didn't work at 880, having been at the other station, I feel very, very connected to, what they were doing, what their mission was, and what the culture was, etc. And again, my heart breaks for another newsroom that's just, you know, in the chaos of job loss.
So that leaves only one all news station
I'm pretty sure that
in
just leaves 1010
New
Wins in the New
York.
York City market.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
here's the question that becomes like some people might say, well, how many do you actually need? And it's like, I don't know. I mean, as long as you're doing y- good content, you're creating stuff, then, but um, it's just sad to see that's a lot of people to be going. I
It's
know they're
yeah.
switching, yeah, like I said, they're going switching to ESPN, but
Yeah, but they're
still,
not.
I mean,
That's a whole different. That's like,
it's a
as
whole,
I understand, I believe that's a satellite thing where they're just gonna flip a switch and it'll go to content that's already created someplace else. It's not like everybody gets a new job.
yeah.
Everybody's gone. And so it made me think of, for our last show, that you and I worked on, we did a podcast with it. And
Mhm.
one of the episodes I had done, I have to find the episode. I don't remember what it was, but I was talking basically about how stress affects the body. And specifically, I was talking in regards to Black women and health disparities that we have. But being exposed to constant stress somehow affects something in your DNA strands, I think. And I have to go back to like look at the script to remember exactly what it was, but something in your DNA strands, I think they're called telomeres. And the more constant stress you're exposed to, the shorter and shorter and shorter they get. And it has something to do with like your life expectancy, your ability to like fight off colds. Like, for people who might be watching this on YouTube, you'd notice that I've turned my head a couple times to sniffle. I have had a terrible allergy attack and I've been feeling absolutely terribly run down. And the fact that since our layoff in December of 23,
Mhm.
I have been living at a much heightened level of constant stress. Now, sometimes it's just like white noise in the background, constant stress. Sometimes something like these headlines will happen, and it's almost like reopening that wound for myself all over again. And then it becomes like a thunderstorm. But it's just a constant level of anxiety and stress. And that's not healthy at all.
No, no.
And,
And I,
until I can figure out how to, I guess find some sort of calmer waters or something like that, that's just how I have to live.
and it also feels like no, even if you, let's say for those people who have been laid off, I think the concern that I think about is the fact that do you ever really feel secure now? Are you, or is this the constant
I
stress
still
and
haven't
anxiety we are going to
since
be living under? Like,
since
even if you get a job, it's like, oh, great, I got a job, but how about, is this going to last? You know what I
that
mean?
part as well. That part as well. No, that's been a fear of mine for like the few places that I've
Hmm.
interviewed where they're just like, never mind. But which, and again,
It's,
and I can totally accept that like I wasn't the right fit for the position that you were looking to fill or whatever the reason is. Like that part I completely understand. But I do wonder if there's ever going to be that like, okay, my work life is, like that's settled and I've got this. And so I'm going to make these other choices in my life now because this is settled. I don't know if I'm ever going to feel that way again, which is a
and
different
I,
kind of frightening.
well, and I think seeing the reports that we're seeing now, it's becoming very evident that this is probably the norm at this point. The industry, all these industries, whether it be in media, news,
I feel like, yeah, because
entertainment,
it's in media now, because the number of people who are like, well, just go to healthcare. Healthcare is hiring. I'm just like, I'm sorry, those are owned by conglomerates too. What happens when they're just
exactly,
like, the stock price dropped?
exactly, exactly.
80% of y'all got to go. Like,
Yes.
whatever
Well,
the reasoning is.
if there's a high influx of people moving to that field, it then becomes then there's less. Obviously, there's so many that the need isn't going to be as great. I mean, it is right now, but maybe there are certain parts of industries that are because of the fact that they need those. But once everybody moves to those fields, then that will become I think it's just seeing how it's all working right now, where it feels like
But I don't
everything's
think it
happening at the
is
same time.
working right
No.
now.
Oh, oh no, it definitely isn't.
Oh, okay. Because I'm just like,
No.
I think the problem is that it's not working right now, and it's giving like Well, I said that earlier on. It's giving deterioration where it's falling
I
apart.
it's correct. Yeah, it's and it's trying to also be, the important thing really is though, I think not, you know, it is also being positive in some way too. Like you have to, I think that's what we also try to do while we do try to read positive stories. I swear we try.
I
And
know.
we laugh a lot amongst ourselves. This is I don't want people thinking this is all, we just like gloomy, like, oh, the whole thing. No, it's just, but the reality is when we're talking, this is part of the frustration too, is being able to get out what you're really thinking and then
Hmm.
also being able to try and build something new from it and realizing like what we're trying to do here or what other people are trying to do, newsletters, creating their own podcasts or vodcasts or you know what I mean? Like or doing their social media on TikTok or doing it on, you
YouTube
know,
or yeah.
YouTube or whatever. We're all many of people are just trying something different because we see it might not go back to what the media might not be going back to what it was ever.
Well, that's also true. That's also true. And so, with that, then I should say that I at least have been thinking a lot about um, grief and how this whole experience has been like, what I mean, obviously, this is like, I've heard several times that job loss is one of the most traumatic experiences that a person can have. Um, but like, it's been a grieving process. I guess just for me, every time I hear about somebody else who was about to go through like, here's the last of the money we're going to give you, you're cut loose and you're on your own experience. Yeah, like I said, it almost reopens the wound for me. Like knowing that somebody else is going to be in that place, which I absolutely, my God. So that is like, I mean, I keep rubbing my neck because it's stressful thinking about it. But yeah, like,
It's triggering. It
yes.
is. It's triggering because it's pulling one back to an experience. Listen, if this was years ago, and it's not, if this was, then I, it's interesting. Like, even if it is, I mean, I think it's something that would still, in the back of my mind, it's still there. Maybe it's not the focus, but when you hear this, and I think we are going through a very unique time. I don't
Oh
recall,
yeah.
like, I mean, I know 2008 was a really bad time for a lot of businesses as a whole, and there were a lot of layoffs, but I don't recall anything like this happening. We're all, I guess media entities really going through this kind of what's next. And that is, and you're right. I think there is triggering in the sense of like you feel that grief of like, oh my goodness, like here's somebody else going through the exact same thing I'm doing that I've been going through, where I went through and I've gotten better, but now I'm starting to like still, it can pull you back.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of that, so my key, my go-to is some healthy disassociation, which I'm sure my therapist would be like, Jenna, that's not healthy. But no, but sometimes I see, like I try to follow accounts that are helpful or uplifting or something like that. And one of them posted something that I thought was really poignant, at least to me, and that is that healing is hard because it's a constant battle between your inner child who's scared and just wants safety, your inner teenager who's angry and wants justice, and your adult self who is tired and just wants peace. And all three of those are me, 100%.
Mhm.
100%. So yeah, that's just like, oh God. But then in addition to that, I also occasionally do my disassociating on TikTok. So for the first time, we're going to try to include some clips from TikToks that at least we've been seeing. We're going to see how that works. But anyway, so I came across one. This is after I had heard the news about both CBS and WNYC. And it was from this creator named Kate L. And amongst the things that she says, she's basically walking down the street talking, video, taping herself, which is normal, I guess. And she says, millennials aren't saving or investing for retirement. We're saving and investing for layoffs. And that really hit me because that's been pretty much my financial story. Like save, 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 get laid off, burn through it. Save, 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 save,
Right.
save, get laid off, burn through it.
Right.
Save, 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 get lit. Like, I mean, just, and even that alone is just like effing with my nervous system, let alone anything else.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like
But I don't think
it's
it's just millennials, I should say.
that's that's the thing. I
Because
think
I'm not a
that
millennial and neither are you.
um I think that's the thing for me is the fact that I think a lot of people think it only and I find this a lot on I think like social is the fact that the, I brought this up to you personally a few times where I feel like a lot of it generationally there's such a divide that people think other people outside of the generation isn't going through the same thing that they're going through. And I feel
Mhm.
especially as Gen X, we've kind of gotten a little screwed out of these old things because I feel like
Oh,
we're
that's the whole
sometimes
thing. We're
overlooked.
the ignored generation.
And that doesn't mean that I think that we should all I feel is a lot of connection to a lot of like I see issues what Gen Z is going through, what millennials are going through, what we're going through in particular. Um, of course, boomers have their own stuff going on. I kind of they're in a different spot, but I do think that some of them, not all, but some, but I do think there's oftentimes a generalization as if others aren't going through. Because I agree with you, like I've in that very similar situation where it's like you saved to be in a spot where you can survive if you get laid off and you don't find something right away. And also in case you need that time to kind of regroup and figure out what do you do next. I mean, not we are in a very blessed situation
Completely,
but that
completely.
doesn't mean there isn't stress from it. It doesn't mean that we're so like I I have to work, but also at the same time, I also realize that trying to do something, trying to pivot to something that's, you know, taking a chance and creating something on your own also takes time and being able to focus on it.
hmm No, it totally does. It completely does. Which is one of those things that also kind of irks me is when people are just like, oh my God, well, this is great. You can take this time to make your own thing. And I'm like, you need to stop telling people that because making your own
Hmm.
thing is not like I just woke up and I did it. And then suddenly I was a millionaire. Boo. There's so much more that goes into, and that's one of the things that really kind of irks me when people give that advice because you're leaving out 90% of the story, as we've discussed. The whole reason why we're doing these like pared down episodes over the summer is because there is so much behind the scenes work that we've been doing. Like, you know what I'm saying? It just,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, it doesn't, and also wanting to have balance too in life, because I think that meeting the balance of working hard but also having that time for yourself too, your personal life of dealing with stress, and you need to sometimes be able to like disconnect.
Mm, I'll find
Um,
time eventually.
you you do. You know, it's like being able, listen, having the ability to sometimes look through videos, it's in the past, maybe we would have done something different, but now sometimes that's how we unwind. We start scrolling through videos,
Yeah.
get ideas, things that inspire us and
I
things that
do,
give us
yes, but
ideas.
maybe that's also part of the problem. What I don't always think of scrolling through videos um, as not, I don't want to say relaxing because it is, and there's stuff that like I've seen that has, my God, I needed that laugh so
Yeah.
bad. So, or as the way we started the show with like, just trends that people are following, like whoever that creator is, who's so
Jules,
demure.
Jules LeBron.
Jules,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh yeah. Jules LeBron. I, I love her because, it's not like she just came out. I've only started seeing her on my FYP page
Yeah.
maybe like a few weeks ago
Mm-hmm.
is when she really like maybe a month ago at max, but it was like, and I remember being like, I was like, oh, she's just really funny. But, now she's doing brands. She just started, like, I've been following her and I read like she's been following Patrick Ta, makeup artist Patrick Ta, and she's doing like stuff with him. And she's also all these brands that have sort of started work. They started using her audio, the Care Bears, Oreos. I mean, it's wild to me. But so deserved. And I love the fact that she's like, I still have a day job. She's like, I'm doing this, but I still have a day job and I'm traveling doing this stuff. And I think it's fantastic. I love that. And you're right. It makes me laugh and it puts a smile
Yes.
on face. That's inspiring.
Yes, those are very inspiring stories. Um, but yeah, but I also find stuff that, can be helpful or, healing in some way. And so going to another content creator who I keep seeing on my FYP, I'm giving, by the way, as I like start talking about this, I'm giving everybody a window probably into my psyche just based on who the algorithm is showing me organically. But anyway, so a creator who goes by Donnell Wrights, basically he was talking because he does a lot of like religious deconstruction or I should say Christianity deconstruction. And he was talking about how God is not preparing you for anything. You're just suffering. And he's talking about how so many of us are taught to rationalize or justify any suffering that's happening in our life as part of a greater purpose. It's because we're being prepared for something greater. And his whole thing is like, the danger in that is that you can start to think that, well, the suffering that I'm going through is somehow justified because I did X, Y, and Z, but I'm learning from it to be a better version so that I won't suffer again. And he's like, that's not a thing. That's just not a thing. And I don't know. I mean, like, on one hand, I get it, what he's saying. I don't know if I completely agree with or believe in it because, I have to believe that there's something better coming, happening, whatever. But I will say that, decoupling that, like, one thing is happening in order for the other to happen, I do think that is helpful.
I don't think we deserve to suffer. I think there are some people who can rationalize it and that, maybe religion can, I mean, I was born and raised Roman Catholic.
Hmm.
Religion can sort of touch on uh things sometimes like suffering is part of life. Some of it you need to go through. If you go through it, there's something else for you at the end of it. I mean, some of it might have started out as just a way to help people. Maybe they meant to start out being positive, like, oh, maybe if you know that it'll give you um the strength to get through it. Like, oh, if I get through this, I'll, but I, yeah, listen, I consider myself a spiritual person, not a religious person anymore, but I do think that
Same.
suffering is, I agree with you. Like, I still think there's something at the end that's better, but I don't believe in that I'm being forced to suffer for a reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it can, but that's a religion thing. And I think that's more of that kind of thing, which I disagree with. But
But still, I mean, I don't know. It just spoke to me in the sense that, like, but there's still a degree of just like, there's been, at least in my life, I've heard from, some well-meaning people that, this is all part of the process and whatever. And I'm just like, no, I think this is just is. This is just market forces effing with my life. And then that's the beginning and end of the story. Now, of course, don't get me wrong. What I do with that
that's what,
knowledge and
yes,
with that place, this place that I'm in, that's how the story moves forward. But like the no, it kind of just is.
I agree. Well, listen, the same could be said of going through something when you go through something really good and thinking that's always how it's going to last, right? The lessons
Yeah.
you learn from life, good or bad, it's how, what you make of it. But again, that's our own, all of our personal journeys and how we deal with it. So,
But that does kind of make me think about the whole trust thing again. Like, whatever happens next, will I trust that I'm safe?
yeah,
I really
yeah, I
like,
don't
and
know.
real talk, I really do not know. And also, my relationship to work, I will say, is definitely shifting.
Oh, same.
Like,
I
I think I'll always have, the work ethic that I have, but my, there's a degree of all in that I don't think is there anymore.
well, when you talk about security and jobs, but what about, let's talk about security and everybody's thinking about at some point in life, you're getting older and you're going to
You're
retire.
gonna retire. I
Well,
don't know about that.
if you can, but even, yeah, but you know what? Even if you think in your set in your head, like, I don't know if I can retire. How about this? How about the point is, what if you can't get work? What if people don't want to hire you because you're older? So the difficulty then becomes, what about people who just don't have that ability as they've gotten older? What happens to them? I think that we're probably going to be the first generation to go into this without any kind of security in terms of, you know, uh, retirement, so security, all those types of things that I know nobody wants to think about when they're,
I
when
know.
you're in your 20s, it's the last thing on
Oh,
your
the
mind.
last thing you want to think about, but it
But
is like, oh God, what was the thing that I was thinking of? Not only is it a very, very real thing to consider, but it just, I don't know. Because I'm going back, my head is going back to almost like the generation wars, which I'm not trying to do, but there's a part of me that kind of what, like, was I just born at the wrong time? Because it's kind of been professionally, at least, a bit of a shit show. Like,
hmm
I was never able to
yes,
really get a foothold or to, like really grow or to really do like it just, and don't get me wrong, I understand that, as even a young Xer, I at least was able to get a taste, but to, like I am secure and like, I have all of, these things that you're supposed to have like figured out and covered, like all of that is done. Like, most of my adult working life has been some degree of feeling behind the eight ball and
right.
trying to prove that I am worthy of at least catching up to it, if not getting ahead of it, which in itself,
I
I'm sure could be its own like psychological breakdown.
Yeah, no, I feel like there's just as we've gotten to that place where you think, you know, when I say this, I mean it like it's our time. You know what I mean? Like you're moving into the positions
Yeah.
of where different generations or different people are starting moving around and you have, and yes, there are small numbers of people who are getting in there, but it's not, it's sort of looking at the presidential race too. They're right, like people who are running for, like for the most part, it's generationally, it's always been more so on the older side. And
Yeah.
so I think that um my only frustration has just been like right when you get to that, like, hey, maybe I'm moving to this field now where, I'm moving up. There's this implosion of like everything's all scattered all over the place. And there's even fewer people now who are in power. And, it has nothing to do with ego of feeling like I deserve this, but it's wanting to sometimes
I think
be able
ego
to,
is fine though. I think we have more than put in the time, effort, and proven ours. I mean, you've got a
true.
GD Emmy
I like
behind your
that.
shoulder. That yeah, no, we are completely
Whatever.
justified,
Nobody
and
cares.
no, I do deserve. But
Hmm.
like again, when I say like born at the wrong time, here's the other thing. It's that again being the forgotten generation.
Hmm.
Um, as things start to settle out and people start to figure out, okay, here's what I want to do going forward. I want young, fresh blood and a fresh perspective. And so, like, what? I'm too GD old, but I'm too young to have really reaped any of the benefits from the
Right.
industry. That's the crux.
It's the frustrating part of kind of being it's yeah, it really is. It's frustrating. No, I don't know. No, but you said it really well because it's sort of like you get to this point in life where you're like, I I've said this to you, like, I think it's great, like mentoring younger generations, and I love being able to, there's so many things that I feel like we've said before and we've
Yeah.
done before that are
And I do
shared
love
by
mentoring younger generations. I really do.
um at the same point, you know, we also have our own goals and still being creative and wanting to create. And I think that's where it's like you start realizing right now, it's like at this point we've gotten here, everyone's like, you got to do it on your own and figure it out on your own. And I guess it's just, it's challenging us in a different way, but I do feel Gen X. Here I go. And again, basically, my thing is this: I don't like pitting people against generations against one another because I feel like it doesn't do any service. There probably are people who love that because of the fact that
Oh, we
you
love
like
to
pissing
pick a
people
team.
off.
We love to pick
Yes,
a
and everyone's
team.
like,
Yeah.
and I am not going out here saying, woe is us. We've been, no. Every generation probably feels it in some form. People feel like they've been cheated out of something. Um, that's where I think it's great if we all start working more together to change that and to listen to each other and understand where we all fall on that spectrum of what we're doing. What, you know, our concerns and our issues are different from millennials in a way and from Gen Z, but some of them are actually kind of similar.
I was gonna say I think
Um,
there's a lot of overlap.
right?
A lot of
Right. It's
overlap.
not this,
Again,
none of this is new.
like that TikToker said, like millennials are just saving and investing for layoffs. I'm like, no, boo, that's all of us.
You
That's
know,
everybody.
yes, it is. It is. There's a lot less security. So people
There's a
don't
lot less
feel
security in, yes, period. And I don't know. The other thing is that I just don't see how any of this is long-term sustainable. Like, I don't, this clearly is not healthy for anyone's nervous system. That does not make for healthy human beings. And I just don't see how such a volatile, you know, market, how is that sustainable?
I don't know. And that's why I think because we're living in it day by day, it's so difficult to see past it. How do you, you know, maybe 2, 3 years from now, we'll look back and be like, oh, this is where we wound up. Wow, who knew this is where we were going to be? But it's okay. You brought this up earlier in the week, and I ended up watching the
Okay.
South Park episode with
Oh, with the
the
underpants
gnome
gnomes.
underpants gnomes. So this is the thing everyone. I'd love for you to, because this is striking
Okay.
me as about the step.
Yes,
You know
okay,
what you're about to
underpants
say.
gnomes. My God, I completely forgot about them. Okay,
I,
so
I
sorry, I'm laughing at this. Okay, so in South Park, of course, there's four boys, but then they have a little friend. I think his name is Tweak, and somehow or another, Tweak keeps losing his underpants.
It
What?
wasn't Tweak. I think Tweak. Yeah, I think is that
It
his
wasn't
last name?
Tweak?
It's his dad. I think. Yeah, it is Tweak. It is Tweak. But his dad is also because his dad sells Tweak coffee, right?
Yeah,
The
his
Tweak
dad
Coffee
sells
House.
coffee, whatever.
But I think Tweak. They're all Tweaks. Yes. But yes.
But
Go ahead.
anyway,
Sorry.
so his they call him Tweak.
Tweak. Yeah.
And so he keeps losing his underpants. And so the boys all decide to have a sleepover at Tweak's house to try to figure out what keeps happening to his underpants. And
No,
in the
no.
middle,
Can
no,
I
oh,
correct you? No, no,
yeah,
because I watched the episode. They. It is Tweak's dad owns a coffee house, and then
okay.
they find out they're building like a Starbucks, like a big corporate new thing that's gonna be right next door to him. And so Tweak's dad writes this thing about how corporate America, sucks and they're going to
Hmm.
destroy South Park. So he writes something the kids to present at school where they're talking about this issue how big corporations suck and they're going to kill all the businesses and mom and pop places or
Yeah,
whatever. Um, and then he kind of uses the kids to go against this kind of Starbucks knockoff. Um, and so while the boys are working, each time they have to do some new presentation. It goes from like presenting to the school to presenting to the council, the board, like the local council, to then all of a sudden having a debate. And each time they have to work on that project to talk about why big corporations suck. And while they're doing it, Tweak would always be they're in their room and they never, for the most part, they never see the gnomes stealing the underpants. They don't believe him actually. Like
that's the part
Tweak, what
I
are you talking
remember is
about?
that they were just like, Tweak, what are you talking about? What do you
That's
mean
right. They kept
gnomes are
lying. They're
stealing
like,
it?
Tweak, you're crazy. Until they finally see the gnomes. And
Yes.
then they follow them.
Yes. And when they follow them and then to, I guess they're like Gnome Cave or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. They're gnome hideout with this
Gnome
huge
hideout.
pile.
Yes.
It's South Park. Okay. The point is that I think it's Kyle, because Kyle's like the voice of reason on that
Yes.
show, who's just like, why are you guys stealing underpants? And the gnomes are just like, it's part of our, what is it, world domination plan? Step one,
It's
no.
profits. It's
Profits.
profits.
Okay, so step one, collect underwear. Step three, profit. And it's
Profit.
like, wait, what the hell is step two?
They said, what's step two? And you see a big question mark under step two. You're like,
But I feel like
step
at this point, this is most business plans I keep seeing or hearing, especially from like corporate leaders. Step one, we're gonna digitally da 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 da. Step
step
three,
three,
profit.
profits. It's that in between. It's all about the in between, Jenna. It's all about the in between. It's like, okay, yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's the part we're gonna lay y'all off. Anyway,
yeah.
that's why we didn't say it out loud.
Jenna, oh yeah. Step one, yes, digital. Yeah, yeah. That's the layoffs. I guess that
Yeah.
is. Oh my goodness, is that the
What if
layoffs?
that
Is that step
What if
two?
that's the big secret? Step one, collect underpants. Step two, lay off everybody. Step three,
Profits. We solved it.
we solved the equation. And so, on that note, I think we can wrap it up. We solved the
I think
equation.
so. We solved it. It's okay. We just figured it all out. That
Until next week.
sounds good, Jenna.
I had a good time. This was very healing.
Same.
All
Bye.
right, bye. Laid Off and Looking is an independent podcast conceived of and created by Jenna Flanagan and Dominic Camia. Music provided by Jay Cowett, research by Lori Ruthenbucker. Reach out to us anytime at laidoffandlookingpod@gmail.com. New episodes drop every Friday at noon.